Uh, and I'm grateful to be here, grateful for the space that is provided, and the privilege to talk about the weightier matters of life, including how to put your financial house in order and how to find a way to provide for the needs of your family while helping serve a greater cause, greater than the cause of yourself. And to start off, I'm going to pull up a screensaver. And with this, a special announcement is that I have commenced a blog. And did a post a few weeks ago, but I spent a lot of time yesterday putting that putting that post from a few weeks ago into a couple weeks ago into a space where I can add blogs regularly. And then last night, I started writing a new blog, and that's where we're going to discuss kind of the topic of that new blog and the beauty of transforming from one state to another state, kind of like an alchemist. If you've heard of alchemy, which is it's a science of people try to transmute is the word they use, transmute lead to gold. And I'm going to share a quote from my favorite author from that. And I want to dive into this a little bit and talk about this transformation that's possible and the tool to help you do that. The tool or system that will enable you to transmute your financial situation. So without further ado, let me grab the screen share and we'll go from there. All right, screen. Let's go. Okay, so here we're using, this is my favorite app for taking notes on books. I love reading a book in a PDF format. Excuse me. And with this app, it's called Liquid Text. It enables me to write. Essentially turns a regular book into an electronic version of it. So this here is a book that I have, a book that I put together, the book that was written by James Allen in 1910. It was initially published, and I've reformatted it and added in like paragraph style, like a scriptural like style of verses, one through, however many verses there are per chapter. And this helps for easier reading and easier referencing when talking to other people. So this is, I believe, his 12th book that he wrote, and it's called From Passion to Peace, and it is loaded with nuggets. So I was reviewing my paperback version of this book. This is his complete book. There's 21 books in this collection here. I got this on Amazon, and I had read a few books and marked them up on that book, but I wanted to have my own digital version of it because I wanted to be able to do a Command F or Alt F or Control F, whatever computer you use, and find key words and key passages faster. So yeah, I bought the electronic version on Apple Books and also on Kindle, but I couldn't mark it. I couldn't underline it. I couldn't write in the margins. Yeah, I can highlight it and I can add a note and type it, but I wanted to be able to feel it and touch it and write in it as if it was paper, like I do in my paper books. So, for example, in chapter 12 here, as you can see, I'll look at a pretty page. So, when I'm reading a book, I dive into it and I mark it up, I underline it, I underscore it, I circle words that are important, things that stand out to me. I add question marks, I add margins. In the margins, I write other quotes, other references, other scripture references, and insights that I get as I study. And I love it. Absolutely love it. From a man who at age 12 finally started to learn how to read to by age 18, I had read maybe 3 books in my life. And the only way I got through high school was that I did the Cliff Notes or I did watch the movie of the depiction of the book. I didn't read. I'm I read a few choose your own adventure books as a boy, but that was about the extent of my reading experience. I never got into comics, never got into any reading whatsoever. And I found that I was an audio learner. I loved to learn by listening. But then at 18, actually at 19, when I was in the mission field, I just prior, or right, actually when I was in the missionary training center, I fell in love with the Book of Mormon, and it just transformed my life. And then I was introduced to personal development books in the mission field. I went, whoa, what is this? These really super wise men, these gurus, they shared their nuggets of wisdom for $24.95. Like I can get it all. And I was hooked. And so for 30 years, I have studied personal development and books about truth, anything from the Bhagavad Gita to the Book of Mormon to the teachings and writings of James Allen to Neil A. Maxwell. Like I devour it. I love it, and because it's about making the most out of this life and learning how to grow and become a better person. So in this book, From Passion to Peace, in chapter 12, or not chapter 12, excuse me, in the chapter 4 called Transmutation, we'll skip to that. I picked up from where the notes I had that stood out to me in my paperback version, and I reread about, I don't know, looks like about 6 verses of it, and remarked it up again. And I just felt inclined to share this with you, this amazing insight. And I plan on doing a second blog post that I started yesterday, but because I spent so much time getting the blog ready, the back office, if you will, wasn't able to have the time to finish the post. So here it is, without further ado. So we're talking here in transmutation. We're talking, just think in your mind when you hear the word transmutation, it's lead to gold. To be able to take from one element to another element, so to speak. And that's historically, many men such as Isaac Newton have strove and tried to figure out the chemical compounds and how to do that. You know, mix a little this, little that, and get something else out of it, kind of like baking. But when I was reading a book called, I think it was called the Kabbalah, the initiates of the Kabbalah, something to that effect. I'll have to look that up later. But it suggested something that was really powerful. And I'm going to look up what that book is. Let's see. It said, while I'm looking it up, I want to say what it said. So essentially it said that the true alchemists back in the day, they were using the lead to gold scenario as an analogy rather than like something you physically do. Like it was an analogy for higher level understanding, higher level implementation of truth, so to speak. And I just loved to hear that, because I think the intention is that as we as mortals, we want to have more. So we take something that's extraordinarily valuable like gold, which is more rare than lead, and we want to transform the lead to gold so that we can have more buying power, more wealth, more power, more this. But in so doing, you kind of miss the mark, and that you make it about a material thing, when in reality that transformation is totally possible, but it's a spiritual transformation. It is taking something from a base rubbish-like scenario, just like in nature. You take fertilizer, you plant a seed, and in well fertilized soil, and fertilization is made of dung, for example, it's rubbish, it's garbage, and you plant the seed in this soil, and out bursts this amazing new life, new fruit, new wheat, new whatever it is you planted. And likewise, in transmutation, you're taking something that's base, such as lead, and you transmute it to something called gold. But that's a man-made action, a man-made thing. But in nature or in spiritual things and spiritual matters, you take a mortal being who has come to this world in a fallen state where they're carnal, and they think of the five pleasures, the five senses of the flesh: touch, feel, smell, taste, etc. And they think of those five things, and that's how they operate. They operate just on trying to fulfill and magnify more of those, more of the taste. Oh, that tasted good, so I want more of it. And that's all they magnify. It's a carnal, natural, mannish like state, which turns to rubbish, because if you have excess of a particular item, it ruins your body essentially. For example, sugar. If you do too much sugar in excess, it's going to destroy your body. And the same thing could be said of other items that you put into your body. So, having said all of that, so this is the base, the five senses. However, as a mortal being, we all have a spiritual being within us. It's the light within our body, and this light wants to shine forth, and it wants to give us more pure communication, more revelation, if you will. And when you tap into that and allow that to control your body, it enhances those five sensories and makes them more in tune and makes them more alive and more present, and gives you greater power over them. And it enables you to transform from thinking in a base, lower state of pleasing these five pleasures to a more godlike manner of serving other people. So, how do you put this? It's and the example I want to extract from this is so when I was 18, I had this idea presented to me that I could become a multimillionaire through a franchise, a fast food franchise. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. You could become a multimillionaire. And then when I heard that the Lord could do more with my life than I could, I gave him my life, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. And then I was essentially, I commenced the journey of, for 30 years, of trying to subdue, or in the words of James Allen, to, what did he call it? He said, where's a word he used? When you take transmuting steady, the word he used was to something akin to subdue. There it is. Renunciation. That's what I was thinking of. Okay, so here it is. I didn't have that part marked. Okay, along with the saintly way, that's this transmutation from lead to gold. Along this way, towards the divine life, this divine nature that I'm talking about, giving up the carnal man, the natural man. The midway point of this transmutation is a country of sacrifice and the plane of renunciation. So you're essentially saying, no more. I don't want these lesser things. I'm subduing them. I'm overcoming them, because I'm now in tune with the Spirit, and the Spirit is now in control of my body rather than the other way around. And these old passions, old ambitions, and thoughts are cast away and abandoned, but only to reappear in some more beautiful, more permanent, and more eternally satisfying form. So I abandoned this idea of having extraordinary wealth, and in working through a franchise system, fast food franchise system, to make that way. Though the guy that that introduced me to that idea. 30 years later, he had achieved it. He owns several stores now. He's a president of the Porsche Club. Like, he's living his dream. And I could have done that. I could have followed along in his footsteps, and I could have made that. But when I gave my life to the Lord again at 18, I was like, okay, I know you can make more of my life than I can, and I see this franchise system can make me a multimillionaire. What can you do? But as I learned that throughout the 30 years of study, I was always, the old Protestant way, essentially back in the day, is, it's glorious to be poor. And but then I'd read these personal development books that talk about attraction and talk about wealth and talk about all this great things. So I had this dichotomy within me going like, how can you do one without the other? And it wasn't adding up. So I was struggling. I was double-minded, if you will, and unstable in my ways. And as a result, I was bipolar, perhaps is part of where that came from. But as the more I turned my life over to the Lord and eventually gave him my physique, and he transformed my physique by changing what I ate, taking accountability for what I ate, what I let into my body, and gave me the power to start exercising regularly. Like, as I did that, he gave me more insights and more things to do work on, and including my finances. So I'm going to pause for a second, and I'll find that book reference that I mentioned. There we go. Okay. It is called the Kybalion, the Kabbalion, by the Three Initiates. So that's where I got the idea of the alchemist being an analogy rather than being a literal thing to do. So and it's an analogy to this higher way of thinking, this higher way of doing and becoming. So so in in that journey, I turned my body over to the Lord, and I gave him my physique, and as a result of that, I started eating differently. And when I was single, before I was married 20 years prior to that, um, I I loved cooking, but I didn't like taking the time to cook and taking the time to clean up. And I had worked in fast food for 3 years prior, and had become, for lack of a better word, addicted to it, loved it. And it didn't take me any time. It didn't take me any effort. So I ate pretty much exclusively fast food, or ate out where other things were made for me when I was single. And no wonder why I started to gain weight, right? So when I met my wife and started eating from her not production, but from what she had created and what she made, I started losing weight and I started eating better. And the point I'm trying to make from this is, if I had continued down that path of the fast food franchise system, it wouldn't have been congruent with the lifestyle that I'm living now. For example, I would have been promoting food that I don't eat anymore. And maybe I would have been a president of a Porsche Club and a multimillionaire, but I might have been obese had I done that. And so the point is that I had renunciated this wealth idea, renunciated this fast food franchise path, and I put it away. And in the past month or so, this has really resonated with me, in that it says here in verse 6, but only to reappear in some more beautiful, more permanent, more eternally satisfying form. The path that I have found now is a way to generate greater wealth, faster wealth, and a wealth that's congruent with who I am and who I've become, rather than working in a fast food franchise system. I don't want to poo-poo anything that anyone else is doing, but to live a life on fire, a life full of enthusiasm and love and service, it takes a heart and a mind single to the glory of God. And when you do that, you take into consideration the ways and means by which you multiply your talents and exchange them. And I'm so grateful that for the past 30 years, I've been hunting and searching and renouncing the other things that I have thought in my youth. And let's dive into this here a little bit now with James Allen. In verse 7, he says, valuable jewels, long guarded and cherished, when thrown tearfully into the melting pot, are remolded into a new and more perfect adornments. So you take the gold and the silver and whatever metals you had before, and you give it all to the Lord. You give him your everything. You give him your heart, your mind, your soul. It's not, well, you still own your soul, like you are his son or daughter. He's not asking you to be him, but you give him your life, and you give him your business, and you give him your family. Like again, not your family because your family is part of you, but we're all God's children. So I'm really running circles here, but the reality is that you give him everything, and it's this sacrifice, and you're throwing it all into a melting pot, if you will. And the most beautiful part of this is that when it comes out being touched by his grace, it is more grand and more beautiful than you can imagine. So I in my 18th year, when I was giving my life to the Lord, and I learned about the love of money is the root of all evil, and went down that path of trying to avoid talking about money, trying to avoid not being a servant of money. I kind of X'd it out, so to speak, and the results are prevalent in my life, as I have had the highs, ebbs and flows of money or not money, and in most cases not money. It's because I wasn't open to it. But then in the recent years, recent months in particular, it has been brought to my attention, as much as mentioned in yesterday's live, that we need to be friends with mammon or money. We need to be a wise steward of it. And we don't make a lover of it, but we make a friend of it. And when you do that and put it into circulation, it begins to flow and to grow and come back. So likewise, when I had put away this idea of being extraordinarily wealthy, that idea has come back tenfold, and I foresee having this extraordinary wealth, but in a different way. And it is a more perfect or adornment. Likewise, in spiritual alchemists, he continues in verse 7, at first reluctant to part company with the long cherished thoughts and habits, at last gives them up to discover, a little later, to his joy, that they come back to him in the form of newer faculties, rarer powers, and purer joys, spiritual jewels, newly polished, beautiful, and resplendent. So what I'm saying here, what James Allen is saying here clearly is that, and it's spelled out by a prophet named Spencer W. Kimball too. Like, in the end, Kimball says, in the end, sacrifice is no sacrifice at all. Why is that? Because essentially what you're giving up as you turn your life over to the Lord, is you're giving up the natural man, this fleshy, five senses, eat, drink, and be merry. You're giving that up. And the natural man doesn't like that. You're slaying him. You're saying no more. You're saying no more. I'm not bowing down to you anymore. I'm not submitting to you anymore. In fact, I am now overcoming the flesh, now subduing the flesh and partaking of this divine nature. And how do you overcome the flesh? By yielding to the enticings of the Holy Spirit. And then that enhances those five senses and teaches you, like when you change your eating lifestyle from fast food, for example, to items cooked not from scratch or cooked from scratch, and just one small example, or when you go from a heavy meat eating level to eating more plant-based, your taste buds change. It's really amazing. Like you learn that there are flavors you've never had before that are like, whoa, what is this? And you begin to crave healthy, wonderful food. So likewise, so you're giving up this natural man, this state of eat, drink, and be merry, and it's painful at first. And as just as he says here in the next verse, or not the next verse, and right here in verse 9, the early stages of transmutation is painful, but brief, for the pain is soon transformed into pure spiritual joy. The brevity of the pain being measured by the intelligence and energy with which the process is pursued. So for mothers out there that have gone through the pain of 9 months of bearing a child, or gestation of a child, and then the bearing of a child, and the bearing of a child could take 15 minutes to 3 days, but when you think of it in the whole grand scheme of things, that is but a small moment for the life of a child, to watch and enjoy the fruits of that child for many, many years. So likewise, when we give up this natural man, this carnal, devilish, sensual being that's eat, drink, and be merry, it's painful. But when you do that, what do you get? You get greater access to revelation, greater access to spiritual insight, greater access to your taste buds. I had a friend who lived with me for a little while, and he smoked and he drank, and when he ate a salad, he would put like half a bottle of ranch dressing on, and I'm like, dude, why are you putting so much ranch? He's like, I can't taste it. I'm like, oh my gosh. And this same with salsa. Put half a bottle of salsa on a few chips just so he could taste it, because he had lost the taste buds because of those other chemicals he'd taken. But the reverse is true. When you give up these sensory things of eat, drink, and be merry, and become more spiritually in tune, those taste buds are enhanced, more refined. Think of perhaps someone who's a wine taster. They become very particular. They taste the different nuances between the different flavors and different things. So it's because they focus on it and they learn on it. So when you focus on what you allow, excuse me. So when you focus on these what you allow into your body and what your taste buds become enhanced, they become more refined, and it's beautiful. So you give up something that's killing your taste buds, and you partake of something that's enhancing your taste buds. That's just one flavor. Another flavor is when you're getting rid of this natural eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die mentality, to living like what am I going to bring into my life? What am I going to give out? and you take control of your words and your deeds and your actions, and you begin serving rather than being served. For example, you think of the movies where the kings just sit and have the palm leaves blown over them and grapes fed to them. Like, they're being served. The kings of this world are being served, but the King of Glory, the King of Kings, he is serving. And when you get this mentality of serving and giving and lifting and inspiring, all that happened because you gave up the being served part and you're adding and changing it to serving. Then the blessings flow. Flow. So God asks you to give up this natural carnal man. And what does he give you in replacement? The divine nature, which helps you to think like him, to feel like him, to taste like him, to run and be not weary, and to walk and not faint, and gives you all these, the renewing of your body, gives you all these different blessings. And at the end of the day, you become like him, and he gives you all that he has. What? You give up your carnal pleasures and your carnal fleshy items, and he gives you all that he has. I'm telling you, that's not a fair exchange, but it is how bountiful and giving God is. So, what does all this have to do with the price of rice in China? So, the point I'm trying to make and extract from this is that you give up this, you think on, how are you producing your income? How are you contributing to society? How are you giving back? And I found a way that enables me to produce content like this, where I'm sharing from my heart and from my mind the things that I have studied and things that I have lived and the truth that I know as I see it. And it enables me to do that in a manner that is building something greater than me. It's glorifying my God and helping lift my brothers and sisters to turn to him so that he can mentor them. He's the one who's been there, done that. He's the one who knows the way. He's the one that that sent his son for us, so that if we would believe on him, we would not have to suffer the pains that he felt on our behalf. But that takes action, that takes giving and doing. So I found a way that enables me to do that. And it helps me to provide for my family's needs by creating an automated system that teaches other people how to take their talents, whatever they may be. I know what my talents are, and I'm striving to build them and become better. But it helps each person, no matter where they are and what walk of life is, we all have talents that can be given and shared with others. I love how Ralph Waldo Emerson put it. He said, for every person that you meet in this world, they are your superior in one way or another. They have a talent that you don't have. And if we would go into life with that perspective and say, hey, what can I learn from that person? Oh, how the world would change, rather than going into a room and saying, hey, I got it all figured out. Like, that is a great sign of pride, as author Robert Russell puts it in his book, Vital Points of Demonstration. So when you come into a space such as through this system, it teaches you literally what step by step, how to create, how to build an automation, and how to make 100% of the profits, how to do a 2-hour workday, which this is part of my 2-hour workday, is preparing and giving this this information is me sharing my talent. But you're promoting this automation system in the process, and that is what keeps the system, that's what keeps it flowing. Like, I remember, this is what passive income is. I remember I wrote in 2016, I wrote a book, and I thought, man, once I get this published, it's smooth sailing. Like, it's going to sell like hotcakes. And it did at first when I first promoted it. But the thing I found out is that if you want something to continue to grow, you've got to continue to promote it. You've got to continue to market it. And the same thing with the automation. Like you don't just create up an automation and then let it sit there. You gotta promote it. You gotta talk about it. You gotta send people to it and help them see it and bring it to their attention. I think of a great author named Wayne Dyer, who he was a practitioner of psychology, something to that effect, and he had tenure at a university, and he had a spiritual experience with he had been estranged from his dad, and he had this spiritual experience with his dad at his graveside. When he found his dad's graveside, he went and spent several hours there and felt a deep connection. And after that, he went back and he withdrew. He wrote a book, um, and spent a day or so. I don't remember how many days he spent writing it, but he essentially just wrote it nonstop. And then he left his tenure, loaded up copies of his printed book, and went from city to city to city and talked on radios and talk shows and promoted his book. How did it do so well? Because he promoted it and he talked about it, not to mention the fact that it was that had good content. It was him speaking as an authentic person, offering his talents to the world. Likewise, you have talents to share. You have gifts to share. And what you simply may need, like me, was a pattern, a process, an automated system that shows you how to do that. And if that sounds like you, hit in the comments, hit yes, let's connect. Let's check out dadspaiddaily.com and let's do this. Let's go change the world one person at a time. And sharing our talents and using a system, such an automated system, to fuel that, to enable you to reach further, faster, and farther than you ever thought. So one more note, I did mention that I have a blog, and that was essentially my announcement, is that the blog is, I just have the one post right now, but other ones should be forthcoming, is dadspaiddaily.com/blog. And seriously, this is what life is about, is finding a way to generate the income so that you can do what you were meant to do, which is to share your talents. Just like the parable of the talents that Jesus promoted. One person may have 5 talents, one person may have 2, and one person may have 1. Whatever it is for you, you are commanded to take that 1 to 5 to 10, whatever it is, and to develop them. Some people will pick up this system and they will run with it, and they'll make $6K in like $100,000 in 2 months, 3 months, or less. And some people, it will take 6 months to do that. Some people will take a year to do that. The idea, though, it just depends on what level of talents you have. But the idea is that as you multiply your talents and become better at something and become a better person and lifted to a higher level of living, in other words, receiving more talents, then you become better and you can grow faster and faster. So no matter where you are, what state you're in, I believe in you. I know that you can make a difference and that you have something to share to the world. And there is a system that will teach you how to do that. Go to dadspaiddaily.com, or simply just hit respond yes in my comments. I'll respond to my comments, and let's run. Let's do this. Let's make a world of change and share our transmuting experiences with other people. How the Lord has changed you by turning your life over to him. And because you are going to be able to reach people that my message won't resonate with. Your life's experience will touch the lives of thousands from where your perspective on life, your experiences in life. And I love how author Jeff Goins puts it. Like, there are billions of people on this planet, and all it takes is about 1,000 true believers, 1,000 people that you resonate with, to provide for all of your needs, and to help impact and change. So whether it be 1,000 people you want to help impact or millions, there is a way, and it comes with a touch of a button, a click here to record, clicks to end the recording, a click to send the recording on social media that has no cost, and it can go to millions of people super fast and in a super impactful way. So thank you for joining me today. Let's go out and change the world by one person at a time, starting with you. Work, turning your life over to the Lord and allow him to transform you, to transmute you from lead to gold, to transmute you from the divine, or from the carnal nature to the divine, to be a partaker of the divine nature. Have a blessed day.